What is up, everyone? It's Cher talking and welcome back to my channel. Today we are back for Octopath Traveler 0 as I try to guide you through how to easily grind JP in the start of a game and make the best decision for your second job. As I explained in my first video, it is very useful to start with the Merchant class. And why? Because the Merchant class has access to the skill called Arrow of Fortune that will then convert every 50 points of damage to 1 JP, and that is for the whole squad, and you can even use this skill multiple times in a fight. It will still just stack. Now, I just started the game, skip it through all cutscenes and dialogues and all, and I managed to beat the 2 bosses on theme area, and I'm on 54 minutes. I could tell you by around 45 minutes I already had the second job unlock it, and the second job for me will be the thief, and I will explain why. Look that I have 500 JP points, and as soon as I learn a new skill, that in this case I will just learn donate BP, the game will show you the second support skill, and now the tutorial for the protagonist jobs. Okay, you can learn new jobs every time you learn 3 skills inside that job. I learned 3 skills, in this case it was Mystic Shot, Arrow of Fortune, and Donate PP. Why Mystic Shot? Because it's an AoE attack that converts 2% of the damage into SP, and that eventually becomes very, very broken. But now, why should you go for Thief? Simple, because the Thief is much better in this game than it was in the past Octopath Traveler games. In the past Octopath Traveler games, you could steal useful items, but they were never exclusive. And now we can steal items like nuts and even skills from enemies. So, start as a merchant, grind your JP, then become a thief. And you already start with the steal skill. I would suggest you to only switch to Thief when you are fighting bosses. And I'm talking bosses, not elite enemies. Elite enemies are the enemies that you fight where the game shows you a danger level. We can see it here. They are called elite enemies. And they are not stealable. You cannot get any item from them. You can see that this was exactly the boss I fought. I'll be showcasing the whole video in a few. Now, in all boss fights, especially in the boss fights at the end of the story arcs, you are going to get very useful items, especially skills. And in the future, you'll be able to double steal with a passive from Therion, but I'll be making a different video for that. Now, I will show you how I do grind super fast in order to get enough JP to learn 3 skills in a row. Okay, so I just loaded my past save data, and I am traveling through the West Embergrove Wilds. There are enemies here that are weak to dagger attacks, multiple of them. Some are weak to bows, and also sometimes weak to axe. But I did find many flying enemies that were weak to dagger attacks. And that was very helpful, because you can use both axe and dagger attacks with Stia. She was here just attacking twice with a dagger, that allowed me to use rest twice in a row, and then eventually reach the 3rd turn and use Arrow of Fortune, max it. I will always have a perfect cycle of having enough SP to be able to perform this attack. And I was getting a lot of JP, at least 20 every time I was doing this. And then most enemies are easy to handle in this area. Then eventually you just have to go inside the dungeon. The dungeon is a little harder, but still pretty doable. Now let's get inside the dungeon itself. Here the enemies will be a little tougher, and there is one enemy that you won't be able to land weak attacks with Stia. This Snow Lizard, for example. You can just use Rest and then eventually Arrow of Fortune. It is weak to bows, so you can still get JP, but it will be less, around 13 or something. The enemy in the back, the Ice Lizard, and some others will still be weak to dagger attacks, so use Stia to break them, and then eventually you can just simply use Arrow of Fortune again. The problem is that some of these enemies have paralyze, and that can stop your character from attacking. You have to rely on a chance for rest to remove the ailment, and then eventually you can beat the enemy via Arrow of Fortune, and this enemy receives more damage. With that, you can keep grinding JP till you reach closer to the boss. Now, advancing through the video, there was a last fight before I reached the boss fight, and there is this enemy in the front, call it Frost Weak, that is also weak to dagger attacks, as you can see, so I use its Tia to break the enemy, and then eventually use Arrow of Fortune again to get lots of JP points. You just need some patience, but even then it's not much time. You probably have to fight something like 12 enemies before you reach the boss, or something like that. So, 22 JP points just from this alone. Now, I reached a save point and save it. You can see it took me 42 minutes to reach here. And then I checked my JP points and I had 300 left. I had already learned 2 skills, meaning that I just learned the third. So it took me 30, then 100, and then 300. That means 430 JP points to unlock your second job. And when it did, I chose a thief, like I said, because of the importance of the steal skill. That is very useful for the future. Right now, the enemies don't give you too much, but when you find bosses that are unique, they will give you nuts or even skills. So they may drop a nut from the fight itself, and then you can steal another nut by use of steal. And then eventually you'll be able to double the use of steal via snatch coming from Ethereum. But I'll be explaining this in another video. I wanted also to showcase that you also don't really need to do what I'm doing, because even this first real boss fight that you have access to steal will not give you anything. Look, I only got an Inspiring Plume. That is a useless item. Well, it recovers SP, but you get so much of it inside the game that is totally unnecessary to reach steal for the first boss fight. Anyway, at least I hope I have proven my point that the second best job to get is a thief. We'll be talking more about the job specifically in the next video, but I think this is the end of it. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Click the like button, leave a comment. You can also suggest new videos for me to make. And I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.